Hi, I'm Mr. C, the teacher, and this is my classroom. Over the years, I've created hundreds of lessons in every subject area. So grab your tools for school and join in with us. Or sit back and just watch. And let's go on a learning journey together. Because you're watching Lessons from the Classroom. Well, let's take a look at what the topic for today's episode is going to be about.
Reptiles are cool.
Wow.
Lizards, snakes, and tortoises. These are just some of the creatures that we call reptiles. Reptiles have a backbone, they're cold-blooded, and they lay eggs. And most importantly, they have dry, scaly skin. We're going to learn a little bit about the desert tortoise and about a poisonous lizard known as the Gila monster.
Worksheet lessons.
So here we have a worksheet as part of our animals theme unit. And this particular one looks at a reptile called the desert tortoise. Instructions say, read the story and write the answers. And here's our story area. Let's read that. Look at the brown desert tortoise. It moves very slowly. It eats cactus. The tortoise digs a hole. It sleeps in the hole. All right, now let's take a look at the questions. Number 1, what moves very slowly? Well, our desert tortoise, of course. So let's write our sentence here. A desert tortoise. A desert tortoise is what moves slowly. It says right up here. It moves very slowly. Look at its feet. One of the ways to tell the difference between a tortoise and a turtle is that a tortoise lives on land, usually in the deserts, and it has feet, whereas a turtle lives in water, oceans and lakes, and it has flippers instead of feet. So this is our tortoise because he's in the desert and he's got feet. Let's take a look at question 2. It says, what does the desert tortoise eat? Do you remember that from our story up here? Well, it eats cactus. There you go, cactus. We can see right up here in this sentence, it eats cactus. Let's do number 3. What color is the desert tortoise? Let's take a look at our very first sentence in the story. Look at the brown desert tortoise. So what color is it? It's brown. Brown. Last question, question number 4, says, where does it sleep? we need to read these sort of last two sentences almost. And it says, the tortoise digs a hole, it sleeps in the hole. So where does it sleep? In a hole. It, when you say it, we mean the tortoise, digs. So here's our sentence for where does it sleep? In a hole, it digs. So what we need to do now is add some color to our brown tortoise and maybe our green cactus. Instead of spending a lot of time doing the coloring for you guys, we'll just tap that and get it done right away. And there we go, all colored in. All of our answers in there and our name at the top. And that's the desert tortoise.
You know, I love being surrounded by great books, because one of my favorite things to do is to read stories. So, let's make some time right now and read a storybook. This is story time.
The Reptile Club, written by Maureen Fergus. There were lots of clubs at Rory's new school, but none of them seemed quite right for him. Diggy Club, Ballet Club, Knitting Club, Karate Club, Kaya! Theater Club, Cooking Club, Fire! The Astronaut Club was too intimidating. The Prancing Unicorn Club was too frilly. The Extra Math Homework Club wasn't nearly as much fun as Rory had thought it would be. "Why don't you start your own club?" suggested his mum. "Make it about something you love," advised his dad. Rory loved deep-fried pickles, corduroy pants, and singing in the shower. But more than anything, Rory loved reptiles. So the next day at school, Rory put up Reptile Club posters and handed out Reptile Club flyers. No one seemed interested, but Rory didn't care. He just knew there were others out there who shared his passion for reptiles, and he couldn't wait to meet them. When the lunch bell rang on Friday, Rory set out his plastic reptile collection and the lizard-shaped lemon cookies his dad had helped him bake the night before. And then he sat back and waited for his fellow reptile enthusiasts to arrive. Rory waited. And waited. And waited. Just when he was beginning to think that no one was going to show up, he heard whispering in the hallway. Heart-thumping, he hurried over to see who it was. For a long moment, Rory just stared at the crocodile, the anaconda, and the gecko, and they just stared at him. Then the crocodile cleared his throat and said, "Is this where the Reptile Club is meeting?" "Yes," said Rory. "Awesome," said the crocodile. "My name is Raoul. I sweat through my mouth." "My name is Miriam," said the anaconda. "I weigh 514 pounds and could swallow you in one bite." "My name is Pierre," squeaked the gecko. "I have no eyelids, so I have to lick my eyeballs to keep them clean and moist." "Nice to meet you all," said Rory. "My name is Rory. I sweat through my armpits. I can swallow a hot dog in one bite, and I would give anything to be able to lick my eyeballs." Everybody laughed. Once the new club members were comfortably settled, they talked about their favorite reptiles. "My favorite reptile is my Aunt Gladys. because even though she tried to eat me shortly after I hatched, she always gets me terrific birthday presents," said Raoul. "Carla Chameleon is my favorite reptile because she's the world's funniest practical joker," said Miriam. "My favorite reptile is my friend Jamal, because one time I accidentally ripped off his tail, and he forgave me even before it grew back," said Pierre. Next, the new club members shared interesting reptile facts. "It is a fact that the grouchiest tortoise I ever met was 174 years old," said Raoul. "Sorry, I sat on your glasses." "It is a fact that I adore Rocky Rodent ice cream," sighed Miriam. "It is a fact that I think Barry the basilisk lizard is a big show-off," sniffed Pierre. Rory and his fellow club members spent the rest of the meeting playing and eating cookies. When the other kids returned from lunch and saw that the reptile club was all about, they couldn't wait to join. At first, Raoul, Miriam, and Pierre did not want to let mammals into their club. Then Rory pointed out that he was a mammal, and also that it wasn't nice to be prejudiced against others just because they had hair and could regulate their body temperature. After that, the reptiles agreed to welcome the mammals with open forelimbs. In the weeks that followed, all sorts of strange and wonderful creatures joined the reptile club, and at every meeting they did something fun and different. One week they had a bake sale to raise money to buy a club pet. The following week they took a trip to the store to choose their pet. The amphibians were all too slimy, the arachnids were all too leggy, and the insects were all too delicious looking. They settled on a cactus, which they named Cornelius. They came up with a secret password and a secret signal. Password? Hiss, hiss. Slither, slither. Chomp, chomp. They went on hikes to observe the local wildlife. They played games like hide and shriek and guess what I just ate? Never in the history of the world had mammals and reptiles gotten along so well. Then, one blustery day in late autumn, Raoul said the words that Rory had been both dreading and expecting. "It's time for us reptiles to go." "Some of us will hibernate," said Miriam. "The rest of us will just head south," said Pierre. "Why?" cried Rory's classmates. "Because winter is coming and reptiles can't tolerate the cold," explained Rory. Raoul shook Rory's hand and promised that he'd never forget him. Miriam hugged Rory tight and told him that no mammal had ever understood her so well. Pierre licked Rory's right eyeball and thanked him for everything. One by one, the reptiles said goodbye forever. That winter, not one of Rory's classmates quit the reptile club. Partly, this was because they'd become reptile enthusiasts, but mostly it was because they'd become Rory's friends. Rory appreciated their loyalty, but even he had to admit that without Raoul and the others, the reptile club meetings just weren't the same. And that is why, one warm day in early spring, Rory had an idea. "I think it's time for us to start a new club. The Dinosaur Club."
All right, well, it looks like I've got plenty of art supplies and tools on hand, so I guess it's time to do some quick art creations.
So let's go ahead and use our art pencil and let's draw a snake that will really sort of just jump off the page and slither across.
More worksheet lessons.
So here we have a worksheet for part of our animals theme unit. And this is part of the reptiles. And it says a poisonous lizard. This type of lizard that we have here is known as a Gila monster. A Gila monster.
A Gila monster, or Gila monster if you want to pronounce it the Spanish way, is a lizard, and that's a reptile with a backbone and cold blood and dry, scaly skin. Gila monsters often raid nests to prey on small birds and eggs. They also catch small mammals, frogs, and insects as well. Their large size means they can store more energy than smaller lizards. They store fat both in their tails and their bodies. Gila monsters often stay hidden underground. In fact, Gillas can go for months without food. They especially use this trait during the winter and will stay inside all season long. But when it does eat, it goes big. A Gila monster can gulp down a third of its body weight in one meal. The venom of a Gila monster is normally not deadly to healthy adult humans. And in fact, no reports of death by a Gila monster bite have been known to happen since the year 1930. So even though it's a poisonous lizard, it's more that it's poisonous to the prey that it eats.
It says color and write the name Gila monster down here on the lines. Now we've got a little bit of a color code here. It says anything that has these small little dots in it is going to get colored black. So where we see these small little dots, this part's going to get colored in black. We'll do that all over the whole lizard in just a moment. When we see this pattern on the lizard, it's going to get colored orange. And that's true, this is an orange and black poisonous lizard found out in the deserts. So when we see these parts, it's going to get colored in orange. So now we know the pattern that's put here on the picture for us to know black, little dots, orange, bigger dots. Okay, let's go ahead and do the coloring. I'll speed this up to save some time. Okay, time to switch to the black. I think we should add some color to this desert scene here as well. Looks like the Gila monster sunning itself on a rock because, well, reptiles are cold-blooded and need to sit out in the sun and warm their bodies up in order to have the energy for hunting. Let's color in these rocks here. Okay, and the last job to do is to write the name Gila monster. And we've got that right above the line here, so we can just copy that in. Big capital G, I-L-A, little finger space, monster, O-M-O-N-S-T-E-R. And that's the Gila monster, poisonous lizard. with its beautiful colors of black and orange.
All right, it's time in our episode for this segment that I like to call the Did You Know Fun Facts.
Did you know?
Frogs are amphibians, and frogs can come in all sorts of sizes. Tiny little guys like this poisonous dart frog, or great big frogs. And toads as well. There's even a type of frog known as the glass frog, in which you can actually see through its skin to see its insides. Now this is just a model showing the skeleton and the muscles. Frogs are amphibians because, well, they've got a backbone, they lay eggs, they're cold-blooded, but the way you can tell them apart from reptiles is that their skin is smooth and wet. And amphibians will usually live in water and on land. Some are born in the water and then move on to land, and others might be born on land but will live around the water. Amphibians, they're cool.
Now you know. More worksheet lessons.
So here we have a worksheet on our animals theme unit, and this one is going to be as a part of our amphibians portion to the animals theme unit. And here we obviously have a frog, tadpole, frog eggs. It says, how do animals grow? Think sheet. We're going to color the pictures first, then we're going to cut out the pictures and glue them on a piece of paper in the order from youngest to oldest. The eggs being the youngest and the fully developed frog being the oldest. And we can number the pictures as well to show the order. Well, first job that needs to be done is some coloring. So I've got my scissors and glue for later. Let's get my coloring tools here. This stage of the frog, there's a bit of green starting to show on the frog, and a little less brown, which is normally on the tadpoles. Here we've got the frog just starting to develop its feet, changing from the tadpole into the beginning stages of a frog. Here we have our tadpole. Here we have our frog eggs. So we have our 5 pictures colored in. Let's cut them out and then we'll talk about what order to put them in. I have my 5 pictures. I'm going to arrange them on some blue paper. We want to go from the youngest to the oldest. So let's take a look at our pictures. I'm going to start with the youngest at the top, and that's going to be the frog eggs. After the frog eggs comes the tadpole. The tadpole slowly starts to change when it gets some feet. And then the tadpole starts to slowly look more and more like a frog as it gets some front feet and the tail starts to shorten. eventually we get the full-grown frog which will lay eggs that'll hatch into tadpoles and slowly turn into a frog, which will then lay eggs, turn into tadpoles, hatch as tadpoles, and turn into frogs, and so on. So we have our life cycle. So there I have them in the right order. What I need to do is glue them in. I like to lay my pictures down first so I know they're going to fit on the paper. I've got them in the right order. I'm just going to draw some arrows that show where they go. So the eggs hatch into tadpoles. Tadpole eventually grows some back feet. Then it grows some front feet. Then its tail falls off. Becomes a fully developed frog, which lays some eggs. And if I were to number these pictures, this would be picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, picture 4, and picture 5 for the life cycle of a frog.
Well, Goliath Frog, my friend, that was some pretty cool information. To think how much you change in your life cycle. I mean, you go from being an egg into a tadpole that has to swim and live in the water to eventually turning into a frog. I mean, you have gills, and then your gills disappear and you grow lungs, and you have to go up to the surface to get air. You grow a tail, and then your tail falls off. You grow back legs, you grow front legs. I mean, you change so much until you're finally this.
All right, it's the time in our show when we have a segment I like to call Questionable Letters. And that's where a viewer writes in to ask us something. Let's see what today's letter is going to ask.
Questionable letters.
Yep, we've got your letter. That's great. Thank you.
All right, here's our letter from our viewer, and here's what it says. Dear Mr. C, is it true that if you kiss a frog, it will turn into a prince or possibly a princess? And this is from Amelia Toadstool. Well, Amelia, thanks for your letter, and we have to say this right now that, well, no, it's not true. That's just in the fairy tales. But you know what? I'm maybe not the best person to ask. Maybe we should actually ask my friend, Giant Cane Toad, and see what he says. All right, here we go. Let's go ask him.
You think you could change even more? You just need to be kissed. Is that if I kiss you, you turn into a princess or a prince? Yeah. No, not at all. No, in fact, kids, don't go kissing frogs. In fact, don't kiss any amphibian or reptile. You won't get a prince or a princess, but what you probably will get is salmonella, and that's going to make you very sick. So, yeah, don't kiss any frogs. All right. Want to say goodbye? Yeah? All right. Wait, goodbye.
Well, thanks for joining me, and I hope you learned something new and had fun doing the lessons. Join me next time on another episode of Lessons from the Classroom.